take it away. I've started the recording.
Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Kumar Alan Raju. I'm a cloud solutions architect. Happy Friday. Today, we will be talking about a new and exciting feature called Assistants API in Azure OpenAI. So the Assistants API is a feature. It was released by OpenAI sometime late last year that empowers developers to easily build agent-like features into their applications. Remember, it's all about building agents using your data, right? Now you can ask me, hey, what's new in this? Because this was possible also. Yes, building these agenting features was possible, but it often requires a significant engineering work. If you recall, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about bring your own data into Azure OpenAI. That requires you to have a storage account, Azure AI search, and building indexes and integrating it. So it requires a significant engineering work and integrating all the third-party libraries and involving multiple integrations. However, as the technology continues to evolve with this Assistants API and leveraging the latest GPU models and knowledge, developers are able to rapidly create customized stateful copilots. Once again, we say with the grounded data, which means that instead of pulling up a public information, these customized stateful copilots are using your enterprise data and capable of delivering a diverse range of tasks. So that is the groundbreaking technology that was released by OpenAI sometime last year. And we have started incorporating that in the Azure OpenAI. Okay. So what exactly is Assistants API, right? So essentially, it's an AI assistant, right? It's like a smart helper next to you that can understand and respond to the user queries using natural language. So the beauty of the Assistants API is, which I'll show you in the demo, it requires no coding at all, as I show you in the demo. But when you are actually building a copilot, you will still have to use some Assistants API to make it more meaningful. But essentially, it's some sort of an AI assistant which acts like a smart helper that helps you to, that responds to user queries. I don't know if you guys have looked at it. Sometime last year, Khan Academy released something like a Khan Migo. So something like a math tutor, right? So these are all things built on that technology, and that's what we are going to demo in the presentation. So as always, each technology has some sort of a process to follow. That is getting some sort of an Azure, deploying an Azure OpenAI, creating assistant. But this one consists of a few steps. For example, it starts with an assistant, and then a thread, and a thread consists of a series of steps. So in the interest of time, we may not be able to go too deeper into the definition of all these things, but essentially the assistant is the heart of the system for the Assistants API. It's an AI model which is designed to understand and generate human-like responses. Okay, I would say similarly, the way CPU is for the PC, it's like the brain behind the scenes. It is capable of handling a variety of tasks, answering user questions, and engaging in conversations. Okay, but essentially, when I say it's behind the scenes, it takes care of interacting with the LLM agents, interacting with the tools that you have, and all those things. Now, next comes to, after the assistant, you will have to create a thread. Now, let me also tell you, we provide some sort of a playground, which I'll demonstrate. You don't need to create all these things when you use our playground. But obviously, when you develop a production-ready applications, you will be developing in Python code. And when you do that, you will have to create an assistant. You'll create a thread, and the thread has a message, a run, and all those things. which I'll show you when we generate the code actually. So we talked about what exactly Assistants API is. It's like a smart helper. And then what is the assistant? It's essentially the heart of the system. It's the brain behind the scenes. Now, what is a thread? A thread represents some sort of a conversation between the assistant and the user. Imagine it as a chat window or a dialog container. When you start a conversation, you create a thread and all the subsequent messages exchanged during that conversation. Now, multiple users might be interacting with the same Assistants API. And for each of them, we will be creating a separate thread, keeping the same context for all these users. In a nutshell, an assistant or Assistants API operates within the threads and communicates through the messages and executes the composition of the steps. Okay, so what I'm going to show you is, for example, we put together this nice documentation, which I'm going to show you here. Okay, this is our documentation page. So this kind of talks about the definition of all these things, what exactly a thread is. As I mentioned, it is a conversation session between an assistant and a user, right? And what exactly is a message? So the run step and everything. So when you're developing these custom chatbots, you will have to follow this process. But once, and then we also provided some sample code that exactly tells you that, right? So I would encourage you to take a look at it and go through this process. Okay, if you are trying to build a custom-based Python-based coding, etc. Okay. Now moving on to the next slide. So we talked about what exactly Assistants API is, some of the steps involved in this, what is an assistant, thread, and all those things. Now, there are some integration tools that we support today, and I anticipate there will be more coming as we move forward. But today, focus will be on the code interpreter. And since the time OpenAI released, the first one was code interpreter, and since then we continue to introduce more features like function calling, which allows you to call Azure logic apps, and the file search, which allows us to call the indexed data from the AI search, and the browse, which allows the developers to retrieve the information from the public documentation, public internet website, instead of saying, sorry, I was not trained on this data, so I cannot tell you who is the current president of the United States or some other country, right? So some of these are functions that are available out of the box. But today's session, I'll be focusing on the code interpreter. Okay. So what is a code interpreter, right? Code interpreter is some sort of a tool that allows you to run the Python code in a sandboxed environment. You can use the code interpreter to act like a math tutor, solving the mathematical problems or analyzing the Python data or generating charts and graphs. Okay, so this is extremely a powerful tool that most of the customers or developers are finding it because let's say you need to analyze some structured data or business data using Excel files or CSV files. So that's where you can use the code interpreter. Okay, and then maybe in the future sessions, I'll talk about some of the other tools that we started rolling out. But since we only have half hour, I would like to focus more on a hands-on demo versus talking about all these features. So code interpreter is mainly used to analyze your data by just giving you a CSV file or Excel file and chat with your data instead of really writing a code. These are really, really great. Without writing any code, you will be able to do a chat with your LLM, and I'm going to show you shortly. Okay, so now most of the times we will always question ourselves, okay, what is the advantage of or benefits of these Assistants API? So the first thing is obviously it's no code or less code at all, which I'll show you in our chat playground. And then a couple of weeks ago, I demonstrated where you can use a storage account, AI search to index your data. So with Assistants API, you do not need to use any of these things at all. We don't ask you to create a storage account. We will not ask you to create an AI search or cognitive services and all those things. So these are some of the benefits. But as always, every feature comes with some, pros and cons. Obviously, one of the drawbacks is, we only support 20 input files today. I don't know if we will increase that. Maybe, maybe not. So you need to be aware of these limitations. And if you look at our documentation, we clearly called out what are some of the pros and cons of Assistants API. But essentially, this was designed to simplify the developer experience and build a stateful custom chatbots. Okay, so now I will actually move on to the demo. So typically what happens is, as always, you will be able to you need an Azure OpenAI instance. So I'm going to share my screen. Let me know if you can see. So this is my Azure portal. So I have already created an Azure OpenAI instance. You see it here, right? Then I open the Azure OpenAI Studio, right? So you need to create, obviously deployment, which is in GPT-4 or GPT 3.5 and everything. But this feature is only supported with GPT-4 or above. Okay. And then what happens is this is an Azure OpenAI Studio. We also have something like Azure AI Studio, which we plan to talk about it in one of the future sessions. What's the difference between Azure OpenAI Studio versus AI Studio? So for example, if you go to our Azure portal, and if you search for Azure AI Studio, this talks about the same thing. Okay, so I just wanted to tell you, we have an Azure OpenAI Studio, but we also have an Azure AI Studio. At times, the customers might find it confusing, but not to worry. This is something that we have clarified it in our documentation. Essentially, it's a central hub for all your AI needs, whether it's for machine learning, whether it's for model catalog and whatnot. But let me not spend too much time on AI Studio. So after creating an Azure OpenAI, you head over to the OpenAI Studio, and then you create a model beforehand. But on the left-hand side, you see an assistant. Please note, this is still a preview feature, but it's in public preview. You are welcome to go out and try it out to understand the user experience. So the first thing we need to do in the assistants playground is create a new assistant. As I mentioned, that's the first thing to do because it acts like a smart helper. And under the assistant, you'll be creating a thread, conversation, run step, and all those things. So what I did was I have already created some assistants yesterday just to make sure I do that. But if I want to create a new one, I just come here, new. Let me just give Azure Power Lunch, assistant, and then here you will give a customers. You are an AI assistant that answers users, whatever it is, right? So something like that. So I will not do any of this. And again, this is just a playground. There is no need for you to write any code, right? Now, customers will actually develop a custom code with all their user interface instead of just opening up this Azure OpenAI Studio. But here I wanted to show you that you will not be creating any other tools at all. So let me open up one of my tools that I created. So yesterday I created something like a financial assistant. So let me open that up. So here it tells me what is the assistant name. I just give a friendly name. And here instructions, I'm going to tell this is a friendly message. Hey, you are a financial assistant. Your job is to get me some relevant insights from the structured data. So, I pulled up some sample data set from internet. Ideally, when customers deploy these stateful chatbots, they will be using their own custom data, right, instead of financial data. But for the sake of this demo, I pulled up one of the sample Excel files from the Kaggle. So the Excel file is the one that I uploaded. So if you see, this is the file that has the financial data and a lot of stuff, right? So remember, if you are a data science developer, you need to write a lot of code to get the statistics, to get some information, yeah, and all those things, right? But as I mentioned, you just upload the file. And here we say we only support up to 20 files. The file size has to be less than 512 megabytes. So that is one of the limitations. If you don't like this, then you can go with the old approach of creating and uploading your input data, indexing that into Azure AI search, and start chatting with your data, which is what I demonstrated 2 to 3 weeks ago. But we are talking about Assistants API. So I created an assistant, gave a name, gave some instructions. And here, if you see, as I mentioned, Azure Assistants API supports several tools. So we are talking about the code interpreter. This allows us to, some of these chatting with your data, analyzing it, and all those things, right? So you have to enable it, and you have to upload the data. So that's all you have to do, and then you will start, chatting with it. So hopefully, my demigods will cooperate. So one of the questions I'm going to ask is, what is a segment that sold the greatest number of units? I note down some questions that we ask. So I'm going to ask these questions. Wish me good luck to see if my demigods operate well. So what it does is it continues to read the data, and then say it is telling you what exactly it is doing, right? And it is reading the data. I couldn't find a way to really suppress these messages, but maybe there is a reason. And it tells you, hey, I have loaded the data, and it appears this seems to be a let it first generate it. So it says that I was able to load your data, and it appears this is a sales data set, segment by blah, 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 and everything. And let's proceed with the analysis. So now it analyzed the whole data. It did not write any code. Everything is done behind the scenes for you. That's why I said assistant is like some sort of a smart helper sitting next to you. It saw the brain behind the scenes. So it just gave you this information, right? Now, as I said, it is a stateful chatbot, so you can actually ask more questions. Hey, you told me, but I don't trust you. So show me the code that you have used to generate this solution, right? So let me ask and see what does it say. Certainly. So here is the Python code that it has used to generate this. It's as simple as that. So again, this is all part of a single conversation with one user, one session, right? It could be multiple users talking to the same assistants API, but each data is unique to that session. See, it also gave you the Python code. Now, you wanted to take it to the next level, and you could say, hey, I want to do some analysis and graphing. So you could ask, hey, can you generate a line plot about the sales of the government segment? Something. Again, I wrote down these questions yesterday just to make sure that I was able to demonstrate it very well. So if you see, this is a conversational chatbot using your own data. It's fully secure, running in Azure OpenAI, not on public OpenAI, right? See, it is able to write in a Python code, and it is able to generate some of these graphs. So let's give it a moment or two, because it takes time to generate these codes. And every time you do this, it is generating the tokens. So that's how we are priced based on the tokens it is. See, so the beauty of this is if it finds some errors, it is able to correct on its own. So it tries to rewrite, retry until it finally gives up. Yeah, see, it's the beauty of this, right? So I don't know if you can able to see this, but essentially it generated the line plot showing based on the question I asked, but for the year 2023, it generated this, right? So remember, So we made it very, very simple in Azure OpenAI because it stays in your Azure tenant, in your subscription. It's not shared with anyone. And then you can chat with your private data, grounded data, with your own data, actually, right? And as you see, we did not write any code. But let me tell you, if you click on view code, this is the code that you have to use to create Assistants API. As I mentioned, the first thing you always do is create an Azure OpenAI instance, get the API key, the endpoint, and everything. And then the first thing you do is create an instance of assistant, right? So I'm creating it. Here are the instructions that I gave. Here's the model that I'm using it. And the tool that I'm using is code interpreter. And then you're creating a thread. I talked about the thread. And within the thread, you'll have a message. And within the message, you have a run. And the run, it kind of iterates until the user is completed with that. So then it will. So you need to do this when you are programmatically developing these chatbots. But when you use Azure OpenAI Studio Playground, all these things are done on your behalf automatically. Again, this is a chat playground that you'll be able to use it, right? So the thing is, you need to upload the files beforehand, or you can just do it here too, as I'm creating the instance. So now let's play with one more thing, maybe some sort of a Bitcoin assistant. So let me clear the previous conversation. So here I named it a Bitcoin data analyst. I'm just giving an instruction of how we are going to do this, right? So maybe let me see if it can graph the open price of the Bitcoin. So you need to make sure this code interpreter is enabled first, and then you also need to make sure the input data is uploaded. So remember here, I'm actually uploaded a zip file, not even a CSV. So what we do, we can unzip this zip file, we read the CSV, and then we will we will retry until we were able to get this. When I say we, the assistant is smart enough to continue to read the zip file and see if we can read or not. Let's see if it can read the data or not. So it kind of updates you what it is doing, whether it's struggling or whether it's able to read the data and everything. See, it found an error, but then it is able to do this. So let's see. Yeah. Let's see what it says. So it is kind of telling you how hard it is working on to do this. If it doesn't, that's fine. It worked for me yesterday. So hopefully it does today too. So obviously this is a pay as you go model that I'm using. So it takes time, and I'm dealing with the limitations of the tokens. Yeah, see, unfortunately, I tried this a lot yesterday. So my rate kind of exceeded. So it is telling me, try again in a couple of minutes and all those things. So, but maybe let me try some other agents. So as I said, I'm a bit always concerned about the demos, right? Because it doesn't really cooperate all the times. But you got the message. So I also downloaded one other Kaggle set. It talks about the quality of the apples and everything. So I just gave this the model. So let me try one more thing. Let's see what it does. So here I downloaded another data set, enabled the code interpreter. It should be less than 150 milliseconds. Most likely I may get the same error, which means that I'm hitting the max limit. So I need to try after some time. It actually says I don't have any tokens at all, but I was there because I was trying yesterday just to make sure that my demo goes well. But it looks like it is, let's see. But long story short, you go to the Azure portal, you create an Azure OpenAI instance, go to the Azure OpenAI Studio. On the left-hand side, click on the Assistants preview. And then did it do something? So it found the file in the CSV file has been extracted. See, I told you we kind of extract the zip file, and then it's a CSV. It will load. Yeah, see, it gave the statistics. Consists of this many entries containing the following columns, and it will slowly generate all the statistics of this. Yeah, you see that? In Python, that's what it does. So let's say I'm not happy with this, and I want to ask more questions. See, it is asking, do you want to go a bit deeper on this? So I'm asking, generate some graphics or visualization. See, it is doing that actually. Histogram, box plots, clown plots, and whatnot. Right? Now, tell me, did you write any code? When I say write any code, in terms of integrating this with any other tool? No. All you did was, you are using your input data. You are creating a thread. Yeah, you see this? Beautiful. It takes time depending upon what's your token limit is. Since I'm not really a customer, so I'm challenged with some token limit, but still, thankfully, it generated some of these graphs or visualizations from Python, histogram of size, what is it is, and all those things. Now you could say, hey, show me the code. Yeah, I see, it exceeded my limits. I may or may not get it again. So hopefully, you got the, you understood the beauty of this Assistants API. That is what I want to demonstrate with the hands-on demo. So it kind of generated this whole, it is showing you the kind of code that it has used to generate the graphical visualizations that we asked for. So now let me head over to my presentation. So what did we do? We created an instance of Azure OpenAI, and then we launched it from Azure OpenAI Studio or AI Studio. We uploaded some input data that we wanted to chat with, and we started asking some questions in basic English, and then it retrieved the data. It analyzed the data on your behalf, and it was able to generate some of these things. So, so long story short, Assistants API opens up an exciting possibilities for building human-like conversation agents, right? Whether you are building a math tutor chatbot or customer support chatbots, or for that matter, any other interactive applications that you wanted to do. So our engineering team has put together a lot of samples for you to take advantage of it. So if you head over to this GitHub page, you'll obviously see a bunch of these things. So we welcome you to give it a try, clone it, play with it, and continue to enhance as you see it fit. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I know we are at the bottom of the hour, so happy to answer any questions you may have. But essentially, thankfully, the demo went fine. And if you see, this generated this many tokens, which means that you'll be priced accordingly. Okay, so it's very simple. One thing I want to show you is you can do the same thing from Azure AI Studio. So you come back to AI Studio, click on this, and then same thing, launch AI Studio. And the AI Studio, we will talk about what AI Studio does in the future sessions. But if you see, you can chat, you can use Assistants API. In the Assistants API, since I created those assistants, I can just load them. The same thing. Remember, I was doing Bitcoin, finance assistant, everything. I just load this, and then I'll just able to chat with it. Only thing is the UI is more different. It looks good actually. And we will be introducing all the new features in the AI Studio because that's where we are going to centralize it. So what's your prompt is, what's your name is, what are the tools you'll be using, which is the code interpreter. This is my input data. And then you can define the the temperature, how precise you want the data answers to be. You can do all those things. And here you can see the code that was using to generate this. The same thing. Okay. So Naveed, that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you. Thank you, Kumar. Folks, please feel free to ask any questions. Thank you very much. That's very useful. There are no questions. I just want to give a heads up. There won't be any session next week because of 4th of July holiday in USA. Thanks again, Kumar, for this useful session, and hope to see everybody on 12th of July for another session of Azure Power Lunch. Have a great rest of your day and great weekend, folks.